Hello, very good morning. All right, so today I'm going to discuss on mapper algorithm. Yeah, this will be the first part of a chapter called topological data analysis. Okay, let me start. Okay, so this is the content that we have completed so far. Yeah, so the first week was on basically on machine learning, and then the second week now we have done on principal component analysis. Yeah, on dimensionality reduction, we also done on clustering. So we are currently at here on topological data analysis, which would encompass of 2 weeks. Yeah, this week would be on mapper algorithm, and the next week will be on persistent homology. Okay, today's content would be on a little bit on data science, and then we will look at exploratory data analysis, because the map algorithm will role play as a EDA as well. Okay, so after that, then I'll talk about on map algorithm, and then basically on map algorithm and how we can use it with Python. And of course, after that, you can do your project in groups. Okay, first of all, this is the simple life cycle of data science. Life cycle of data science. This would be a simple, means a standard life cycle of data science. So data science, usually we have data set. Of course, before even collecting data set, we ask the questions that we want to know, right? So once we have the question that, or whatever inquiry that you have, based on that, you construct your, based on that, you collect your data. Yeah, you collect your data. And once you collect your data, the data might be raw. You might want to do some sort of processing. So we want to clean up your data, which is called data wrangling, also known as data munging or data cleaning. So once data cleaning is done, you have a clean data set. You might straight away do EDA, yeah, exploratory data analysis, which include visualization, right? We might want to do simple descriptive statistic to look at each feature, etc. Right? But and then when it comes to visualization, if it is in very high dimension, that you might want to do some sort of dimensionality reduction. So before moving towards here, you might want to do, like for example, you might want to do PCA, or you might want to do DSNI in order to reduce the dimension of data such a way that you would be able to visualize them in a lower dimension, for example, in a 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional space, right? You might want to do some work on, like, for example, you might want to look at correlation of the data between features. You might want to look at what else? You might want to do standardization or normalization of your data, right? So you might want to introduce some sort of like a new feature using existing feature. So those kind of things fall under feature engineering. Okay. So EDA can be anything for that matter, right? It can be anything for that matter. Include looking at correlation, as I said. What else? Doing some sort of statistical analysis. Yeah, it all goes into EDA. Next thing, once you understand about your data, once you understand about how the features are related to each other to a certain level, then you want to do your machine learning model, right? Of course. So taking your data, or once you understand the data, it should be this way actually. So once you understand the data, you choose your data. You choose your features that you really would like to work on, and then you put into a machine learning model, and you create a model, right? So of course you will split your train data and then your test data. And so once you have your train data, you create a model, You have a predictive model, and then you will test them. So you'll test, see how the accuracy like. So once you're happy with it, so you have your final predictive model. Your predictive model, yeah, predictive model would be your product actually. Yeah, a predictive model will be a product. In fact, you can then provide service, for example, to predict something via maybe web. So where users would be able to log in, use a predictive model, put the sample or an observation in your model, and then to predict. Okay. So that is when you put, let's say you make it available in web. So it's so-called model deployment. And then so the users use it. And then maybe after some time you have version 2 with the increased capability, right? You find a different way to do it. Maybe you introduce a new feature. So you will probably collect more data, and then the life cycle goes on like that. Yeah. Okay, so this is the standard way of working as an AI or a data scientist. Okay, AI engineer or data scientist. All right, so let's look at an example of a data. Okay, an example of a data, why we want to do topological data analysis. Okay, so this is a set of data called data source dozen. Dozen here simply means 12, of course. So data source. Yeah, so this is a dinosaurus, right? So from this dinosaurus, this is the data, of course, in two-dimensional space. It is in a two-dimensional space, x and y value. So they take this data, and then they reproduce another 12 set of data, which you can see here, which has similar correlation between x and y. The mean of x is the same. The standard deviation of x is the same. The mean of y is the same. The standard deviation of y is the same for all this data set, which originally was a dinosaurus data set. Okay. Now, if you were to do statistic with this, there's a high chances of whatever that model or your test will fail, because it has all these similar descriptive statistics, right? Whereas if you do a simple thing like just visualize them, just plot a scatter plot and have a look at it, they have distinct structure or a shape, right? So if you were to let's say if you were to cluster, right? For example, this probably fall, and also this will fall in one cluster. Probably these two will fall in one cluster, and so on and so forth, right? By just looking at them, you have a clearer picture, right? You have a clearer picture. So what it means here, visualizing them is very important. Of course, when you visualize them, what you're doing is that you are looking at the shape, right? Looking at the shape. So shape is very, very important. The information of the shape can be used for machine learning purposes. For example, what we did just now is clustering, where I said this group and this group will be one in the same similar group, and this two set will be in the same group. Okay, so that is actually the motivation of topological data analysis. Data has shape. Shape can be a good descriptor. Descriptor can describe the point cloud. Okay, now let's look at topological data analysis. The main theme of topological data analysis is that data has shape and shape has meaning. So we are going to extract the information of shape. We're going to quantify. The shape is something about quality of your data, so which you can then quantify numbers and then use it for machine learning purpose. Okay, so the motivation of TDA is we get to investigate a different scale, a different resolution. Different resolution simply means is that you can look at a particular part of the data, or you can look at the overall shape of the data. And it is resistance to noise and missing data. Say some part of your data is missing. It would be able to still encode the shape of the data well. It is invariant under deformation, which means like if the data is like you map it or you shrink it, it's still the same data. Okay, so it is invariant under deformation. So what is invariant under deformation? The shapes information is invariant under deformation. Okay, so what it means is that we are going to use the shapes information, something like a thumbprint, right? So every human has a unique thumbprint, can be used to identify individuals. So similarly, we are going to use the shape of the data to do classification. So basically, use TDA either to visualize, look at the structure of the data, or extract the shapes information, make it as a feature, and then input in machine learning. So we can also use it as a feature engineered new feature for machine learning purpose. Okay, here you go. There are actually two methodology when it comes to persistent homology, but they in fact behave the same way. Okay, the first methodology would be mapper algorithm. The output would be a graph, yeah, a network. Yeah, better I say it as a network. Okay, this is a network, collection of vertices and edges. Yeah, vertices and edges. So we call it as a network. So let me just call it as a network in order to avoid any confusion. Excuse me. Okay, the second part would be persistent homology, which would be our machine to extract the shapes information and to represent it in a plot called persistence diagram. Okay, this persistence diagram basically just behaves just like your thumbprint, the information of the shape for a given data set. Okay, so you assume now you have a data set in this form. Okay, this is your data set. Let's say it is in two-dimensional space. So in two-dimensional space means every single point in a tuple. But of course, it can be in any dimensional space, Rn. Yeah, it can be in a 100-dimensional space, then it will be R100, right? We can push it in this machine, which is topological data analysis, in order either to look at the structure of the data by creating a mapper, by creating a network using a mapper algorithm, or we can push it in persistent homology to get a signature of the topological and geometrical information. Now, rather than saying shape, I said topological and geometrical information of the data. Okay, so this persistence diagram, okay, it is actually the information of topology and geometry of your data. All right, so I would cover this in the second part of the lecture, which would be next week. So today we're going to look at this on mapper algorithm in detail. Okay, what if now okay, I mean, where is TDA in data science lifecycle? Right. So same thing. So you have questions, you have data acquisition, and then you have data wrangling. Then after that, straight away, you do your EDA. So mapper algorithm would be now your EDA. We can use mapper algorithm as your EDA, exploratory data analysis, to look at the shape and the structure of your data. So by looking at the just shape, the structure of the data, you would be able to identify and elucidate the pattern of your data. Okay, that's the first part, which we are going to cover today. Whereas the second part will be on using a persistent homology to extract the feature. The feature here would be the shape, the information of the shape in the context of topology and geometry, where we can use the extracted feature to do machine learning tasks. For example, it can be classification, regression, clustering, yeah, and etc. Right? And then of course you do your deployment. So in fact, you can deploy as simple as a mapper algorithm for a given data set. So it will help the user to look at the structure of the data, right? So this is one product. Another product will be, of course, the predictive model itself, where it uses feature engineered data from your given data, your raw data, via persistent homology. Okay, so that would be a predictive model. Predictive model. Okay, right. So then the rest is the same, where you might want to improve your model, or in the context of mapper or persistent homology, to create a better, more accurate predictive model or visualization, right? So that's what we're going to do. So let's look at the first part, which is map algorithm. Okay, so today's work or lesson would be to understand the details of map algorithm, which means we want to make sure it is a transparent box to you, such a way that you will be a power user. So it has a number of free parameters. Free parameters, I can also say it as a hyperparameter, where you get to choose such a way that you generate nice, informed, rich information of the data. So you get to see the structure well. Of course, once you understand the algorithm, you will then implement using Kepler Mapper. Kepler Mapper is a Python package which is available for free. We will use that to do map algorithm. Okay, a little story on EDA just to review back. So originally it was introduced by John Turkey in 1970s, back in 1970s when computers were sparse, right? So basically the idea was to investigate the data and then summarize the main characteristics, and of course to visualize them, right? So visualization is very important. Visualize them, right? Why? You just want to understand the relationship between the features, right? See how related they are. Okay. Now, the main purpose, as I said earlier, we should look at, okay, we should visualize them, of course, and then we should do it. Yeah, we should look at the data or investigate the data without making any assumption. Yeah, we should look at it as it is, okay, without making an assumption. If you do some sort of statistic with H0 and H1, we're already making an assumption based on the data's distribution, for example. If possible, we want to look at it without any assumption, without judging them, right? So of course, the main idea is to understand the pattern within the data, identify outliers there is, maybe the outlier is an anomalous event, right? And find interesting relationship among the variables, right? So after doing this, then you can narrow down to a better, more accurate question that you want to answer, such a way that you make a well-informed decision. Okay, all right. So of course, having a well-informed decision via your model, a predictive model. Okay, now there are a few types of EDA. One is univariate visualization, as simple as a box plot. You take each feature, you look at each feature's mean, median, mode, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. If there is a outlier and etc. So that is univariate, just one, looking at one. Whereas you can also do multivariate, compare both, look at correlation, for example, right? So that is multivariate. So the advanced ones are more of like towards moving towards dimension reduction, for example. They are more towards the machine learning work, which is dimension reduction, clustering, prediction models, and etc. Okay, right. So now basically you understand the story behind map algorithm. So as I said, given an input, this is a point cloud. The point cloud, and then you end up getting exactly this this network. yeah, which is called a graph actually, as a mathematical object, a collection of vertices and edges. G, yeah, is a collection of vertices and edges. Collection means a set, vertex set, edge set. Okay, and we get to see for example, the loop, the main loop here is encoded with this loop, whereas the small is considered as noise, so it becomes straight like that. So this is the so-called the structure of the given point cloud. All right. Okay, let's look at the details. So before we go to maple algorithm, let's understand a little on graph or a network. This is an example of friendship and network. We assume that we have vertices. Yeah, first, of course, graph has a set of vertices and a set of edges. So here, vertices means all these points. Yeah, can be also called as node, N-O-D-E, node. Okay, so we have Ali. Okay, we have Kumar. We have John. We have Ching and Tasaka. Okay, Tasaka, Ching, John. Okay, so edges basically tells you who to connect it to. So Ali is a friend of Kumar. Kumar is also a friend of John. John is a friend of Ali. Ching is a friend of Tasaka. So we will end up drawing these edges based on the information of the edge. So you get a nice network or a graph like that. Okay, so this is a graph, right? And then this the edge here has no information. It's just, for example, the distance from Tasaka to Ching is 1, and Ching to Kumar none. They are not. They are not a. They're not a friend. Yeah, they don't talk to each other, so they're not a friend. So we have actually two components. One component, two component. Yeah, these are the information of this friendship network, right? Friendship network. Okay, and then this friendship network, well, as I said, it's isomorphic to this network. Okay, and this network here on the left hand side is isomorphic to the network on the right hand side. Okay, so basically, if you look at these two information, the information of the right hand side's network is the same vertex, same edges, right? It's just that the way it is drawn differently. So this is what it means by you can shrink them, or you can a bit squeeze them or push them in, pull them out. You get to this. You get the same structure. The structure is the same. Yeah. So there's like, again, this is one connected component, the other connected component. There's actually one loop here. Yeah, there's one loop here. This is also one loop here. These are the information of topology, yeah, that we can extract from a graph. Okay, and also the graph can be annotated. Yeah, the graph can be annotated to add information to the graph or network. So the annotation are, for example, the size. Maybe I want to increase the size to represent the age of the student. For example, Ali is like very old, so I increased the size represents, okay, maybe this represents 55 years old. Whereas Kumar is just like, let's say, 15 years old, so I'm going to represent it at a smaller diameter circle. So I can do that. And John is, let's say, also 15, so they're going to get, John going to get a similar size diameter circle to Kumar, right? So this is how it looks like when I annotate or add information on the age, for example, age, yeah. Whereas I can also make color, right? So if you have seen now, we can also color code, right? So color code. So I can use color to represent rather than using the size. I can also represent color where rate means rate means higher. Okay, for example, this is going to be red, and then green means lower, so this is going to be green, right? So I can also do that. I can also even use shape. For example, let's say a triangle means male. Okay, triangle means male. A diamond means female. Right. For example, here, here, Qing. Let's say Qing is a female, so female gets diamond, and then male gets a triangle. So we can also use shape. So there are many ways, many ways to add more information to the graph actually, so that when you visualize them, and when you look at of course, look at the label, you'll be able to understand and make a better, well-informed decision, right? So this is a short story, of what is a graph, also known as network, right? Why? Because end of the day, when we input our data set in mapper machinery, we are going to get a graph or a network. Okay, so this is a story. So input, point cloud. Output is a network or a graph. So we call it a mapper. Yeah, a mapper. A mapper, basically, it mapped from point cloud to a graph. So we call it as a mapper. So the input, of course, X represents your point cloud. Yeah, a point cloud. And then delta X represents the distance. Of course, using the point cloud, you're going to compute the distance. And then using this distance, we would then do mapper algorithm in order to get a mapper graph. Okay, so this mapper graph, of course, the input is your point cloud. And then we are going to use some sort of a function, a filter function, also known as lens, to develop the graph. It was first introduced by Singh et al. Singh was a PhD student at Stanford. So Memoli and Carson were his supervisor, PhD supervisor. So this is the outcome of his PhD work actually. So what mapper does is that it exhibits relation between clusters. So each point here, I mean each node here is actually a cluster. Okay, of course, variables here, of course, your data set is already in the form of variables. So we get to see the relation, what is the structure. So we would be able to visualize, of course, first thing, you can look at it. You can interrogate. Interrogate means you can investigate the structure. You can always like click on a particular point and investigate further who they are, at which point, which sample actually it represent. Okay. And then it is computationally cheaper as compared to persistent homology, which we are going to look at later, right? Okay. So the story of mapper is actually, it's a compressed representation approximating Reeb graph. Yeah. This is his original publication when he was doing his PhD. So Reeb graph from a height function. So given a, like, for example, a donut shape, right? A donut shape. So if you like keep on like this is actually a nerve, right? This is a Reeb graph. The Reeb graph is like a very simple representation of the point cloud, which represents a torus. A torus, yeah, this is a torus shape. So as you move on top, there is a critical point, right? It's now breaking into two. Yeah, it breaks into two. Originally, it was just one piece, and then it broke into two, and then it joined another critical point, joined together, and then one piece again. So the height function, so-called the y value here, represents a Reeb graph of a torus. Okay, so that is basically the idea. So how we would be able to represent in a simpler form, which is in the form of a graph for a given point cloud. Okay, now what it does is that you get to visualize the structure of the data, as I said. So of course, if it is a higher dimension, just like PCA, we would be able to reduce it lower to lower dimension as a graph, and then we get to investigate the structure, right? So it is pretty cheap. Yeah, it is pretty cheap as compared to persistent homology, right? You get to see the topology. The topology here implements is that a connected component, for example, there's one connected component, this is one huge connected component here. You get to see the flares. These are flares, like these are the flares. These are loops. So you get to see flares and loops, and flares and loops actually elucidating the structure, right? It is telling you a story of the structure of the data. Okay, right. And the success story, it's all started, map became famous after this story here, right? This paper here. Please have a look at this paper. Yeah, this is you can just copy and paste in your browser, and it will take you there. So this paper here, it's they were studying Nicolau et al. Were studying on disease-specific genomic analysis on breast cancer cells. I think breast cancer related to genomic analysis. So what they obtain is this structure. This structure. This is three flares. You get to see like three distinct flares, right? So what Mapper did is that Mapper identified a subgroup of breast cancer with unique mutational profile with excellent survival rate. And this new flare here. But it was previously the biologists did not find this. Biologists assumed there are only two types, right? Fortunately, so Mapper found this group here, and whereas this group, if given a proper medicine, proper care, the patient would survive. Then you can increase the survival rate. Okay, so that was the success story of Mapper actually. All right. Now, after completing PhD, yeah, Singh, after he completed PhD, during that period, 2007 itself, Stanford were encouraging PhD students to create startup. Right. So eventually Singh did a startup, and now it became a company, a huge multi-million-dollar company called Symphony IST. Right, so they're using Mapper algorithm, of course, more advanced version of Mapper algorithm for financial crimes, disease recovery, genomics, you saw just now. Many things, right? Many things for many kind of data set, right? So it is still ongoing, and they are still running it. And of course, Singh sold off his stock, and he's now a millionaire. And he has he has developed another startup actually to work on something else. Okay. All right. So the package that we're going to use is called Mapper. Scikit. It's in actually Scikit TDA. Yeah, Scikit TDA. There's a typo here. Called Kepler Mapper. Right. So you're going to use this package to do Mapper algorithm. Okay, there's another package also in it's called Giotto TDA. In there also Mapper algorithm available for you to just push your data in to get your network. All right, now let's look at the details, every single step in Mapper algorithm.